Hello and welcome to this Radio.co webinar all about how to grow your audience, where we're going to explore not only all the places that you can place your radio station on for people to obviously find, listen and enjoy it, but also tips on how to promote your radio station in order for hopefully people liking it, extending the life and longevity of your station, and ultimately getting your station to the heights that you can only dream of. My name is Phil Dean, and I am the Customer Success Manager at Radio.co. So kind of what that role involves is really just chatting to people all over the world, trying to help them create their own online radio station, obviously through Radio.co, showing them how easy that can be done. But within that realm, I also like to give advice and guidance, the team alongside me about how to, what equipment you might want to use, ideas on script writing, on podcasting, and including what we're going to be talking about today, marketing and promoting. I'm not alone, of course. I have not yet introduced my guest today. This is Lucy from the content and marketing team at Radio.co.
Hello, I'm Lucy. I'm a content producer here at Radio.co.
Cool. And what do you typically do in your day-to-day, Lucy?
So my day-to-day is I write a lot of the Radio.co articles. A lot of this is focused on marketing, how radio stations can attract more listeners, like this webinar will be featuring. I do case studies. We look at kind of successful radio stations or radio stations that have been set up under quite unique circumstances. And just kind of write and talk about all things radio, really.
Yeah, so obviously within the realms of your role at Radio.co, you do, as you say, involve yourself a lot in radio stations. So you kind of, without actually building one yourself, you feel like you kind of know the ins and outs, or kind of what works and what doesn't work through these stations that you've spoken with.
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely seen a lot of great examples of really successful radio stations. I've seen how radio stations do well, and sometimes the common mistakes that radio stations make as well.
Yeah, and then there's some of the things that we are going to cover today, because me and Lucy, we're going to take you on a kind of like a journey of sorts. We're going to take you from that initial radio station concept, or perhaps the actual station you've launched, making it available to listen to, making it available for people to find, how you can promote and grow your audience, and then a couple of do's and don'ts based on our own experiences and also experiences we've learned along the way from some of our broadcasters. After our discussion, along the journey that we'll take you on, we are going to be looking at a couple of, success and unsuccessful stories from some of our broadcasters, that have been in touch with us already. So thank you very much for writing to us on those. So we're going to go through those. There's about 5 or 6 examples of, first-hand experience and, knowledge of what worked or for particular stations or not. So we're going to cover some of those. If you have questions yourself about ideally about things like marketing or content, then please do send us an email. You can reach me, studio@radio.co. Or it can be about anything about, getting started. Me and Lucy are here to help today about primarily promoting and content and do's and don'ts. But any questions, any concerns you have about launching your own online radio station, just send me an email, studio@radio.co. So the first thing we're going to discuss, Lucy, is, imagine yourself, you've got your brand new radio station ready to rock. You've loaded all your content up, you've built your shows, maybe you've got some of your DJs on board. Now, how can people actually find that station? Where are we going to put your station on so people can ultimately listen and hopefully enjoy it?
Yeah, Phil, good question. Well, I think the first port of call might be actually having a personal website.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have one set up already, or you might decide to set one up with a kind of website builder like Wix or Squarespace or so, which are kind of very user-friendly. And the crucial bit here is obviously that any people you direct to your website have access to the radio station on it, and it's not just your website. So you could either embed a stream link or a pop-out web player. Mm-hmm. You could put links to any internet directories that your radio station is listed on. And if you have your own app, you could also put a link to the Google Play Store or the Apple Store to download the app.
Yeah, so I guess a website, I like to describe it, it's kind of like a nice little headquarters, per se, for your station. Yeah. It's a good way of directing people to not only a location where they can find your radio station, but, where they can find other outlets. So as you mentioned, things like mobile apps, which we'll touch on in a moment, even things like smart speaker skills, again, what we'll mention very, very shortly, but also things that are outside of the actual radio station itself, like biography pages. Everyone likes to know who they're listening to, not just what they're listening to. So having like a little bio page maybe. It's also great for advertisers or competitions. It's just a nice place to direct people to. So, potentially having your own online radio station with your own domain name and therefore your own brand. It is a good way of just showing people instantly, even just from a front page, this is what we are, this is what we do, and stick around.
And letting them know what's on air and when as well with
yes,
the schedule.
Exactly.
Crucial.
And what we can do, through like likes of Radio.co you mentioned before, having things like a web player is a great way of having something that's a bit more visual. People can see things like artwork and track information. Mentioned schedules. You can have things like a schedule to show people what you're listening. So it doesn't always have to just be the actual radio station yourself. Like I say, it's a good place for your fans, your listeners to congregate all in one place. And of course, it's a good way to expand on the brand of your station as well by having a personal domain name. I'd like Phil FM, something like that. Ideally, I want www.philfm.com. If it's available, hey, hit me up. So having a good website is a good place to start. But a question I do get asked a lot in regards to websites is, I guess I can relate to this. I'm not a website developer at all. Are there alternatives to potentially building a website? Is there something else I can use instead?
Yeah, I would actually say a really great alternative would be to potentially set up a Facebook page for your radio station. If you've ever kind of Googled a business or a radio station or a company or so, you might have had their Facebook page come up as their first resort if they don't have a website. And the Facebook page usually just functions like a mini website. And a lot of people are very comfortable using Facebook. It's dead easy to use, obviously. And in that, you can put all the same information that you would do your own personal website. So you can put information about the radio station. You can put links to how people can listen to it. You can put your schedule up. And then also, if you set up a Facebook page, you open yourself up to stuff like Facebook advertising and other benefits that Facebook offers as well. So if you're not that comfortable or you don't really want to set up your own personal website, then I would say the Facebook page is probably the way forward.
Yeah, it can be really, like I said, it can function as, the front page or even front couple of pages of a website into an actual Facebook profile where, again, people know what you're all about. They can see posts and videos about what you're doing, a bit more information about you. Links to your radio station can be put on there, or even a player can be embedded on there. So yeah, if you are like me, a little bit skeptical about building a website, thinking, how easy can it be? I mean, I guess from where I'm standpoint, a website is something I can't really do. I mean, you can build a website through us. We have a website builder if it is something you want to do. But I think for me, having a Facebook page is something that I guess use anyway. So it's a bit more natural to me. And, after all, if people are spending most of their time on social media, Facebook, Twitter, things like that, it makes it a bit easier to find your station if, hey, what they're using, you're also available on there nice and easily.
Absolutely.
So, and obviously Facebook's free as well. So for the time being, anyway, unless the cost, I don't know. Who knows? If you're watching this in the future, then sorry. It was free once upon a time. But yeah, using like Facebook, it's free, and we'll be talking a bit more about the value of social media and the benefits of it later on in this webinar. But yeah, creating a Facebook page is free. I guess the only thing it costs is the time and effort to kind of maintain it.
Yeah.
And so Facebook, social media, again, a good alternative to having your own website. And then you touched on things like mobile apps. So I guess, Lucy, personal question for you. How often are you, I guess, downloading apps or using things that are exclusively just on your mobile phone?
Well,
I guess entertainment-wise.
Yeah, I use apps quite a lot just because they're often they're kind of the more slick, user-friendly way of kind of using a service or kind of a product or so, rather than having to do it all in your browser and having 500 little windows open on your browser. I mean, I still have probably about 70, but I try and shimmy over to an app where possible.
Yeah.
So if you've got lots of listeners or that want just like a quick, very kind of easy way to listen into your radio station where they can it's literally the click of a button, then an app's a really great way of doing that also. Yeah,
and I found as well, like having like an app is a bit, dare I say, trendy, I guess, for a station.
It's trendy, yeah.
It's pretty cool, isn't it? Because I found, particularly from personal experience, if you're doing a podcast or a radio station and you want to do a call to action, a call to action, is visit our website or give us a review or something like that. Having something like a mobile app is a much more appealing thing, and people are much quicker to respond to downloading an app, even though it takes arguably a lot more actions and clicks to actually download and open something than it is just visit a website. But it's because, we're so used to just downloading things specifically for our mobile phones. You may find that having an app can be incredibly beneficial for you because it provides more accessibility, more efficiency for those using it. Because at the end of the day, you are launching an internet radio station in an age where we are all glued to our mobile phones more than we are to our computers. So having something that is just purposely built for your station from a mobile phone is, it's hugely beneficial. So it's something you should definitely consider, and you can, build again mobile apps through Radio.co. That's why we offer that service, because it's something that we found is hugely beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then again, kind of on that topic is the rise and the reign of smart speakers. So, have you got any particular insight into smart devices, particularly like smart speakers, and sort of how they've kind of benefited from online radio?
I certainly do, yeah. So smart speaker ownership is actually on the up, and we've got research both from America, from the Edison research, the Infinite Dial report, and we've got research from Radio, which both shows that more and more adults in both the States and in the UK are now in possession of a smart speaker, and more people are using smart speakers to listen to internet radio and to listen to other forms of audio. So they are kind of like muscling in a little bit. They're taking a bit more of the market. They're kind of like, this might be the future of how people continue to listen to audio. It's definitely seeing a bit more of a dip from traditional ways, such as FM and AM transmitter, for example.
Yeah.
So just a little stat for you here. From the Infinite Dial report from the Edison research, 1/3 of Americans aged 12 and above, which is approximately 94 million people, now own a smart speaker. And that is an increase of 22% from last year. And it's nearly 5 times what it was in 2017. So as you can see, that growth is really just skyrocketing. And in the UK, Radio reported that over 50% of the UK adult population now use voice-activated smart speakers to listen to radio weekly.
Wow.
So yeah, it's getting big.
Yeah, and I guess arguably a lot of the, ways of people listening to even like the biggest traditional stations, things like the BBC radio stations, I guess a lot of people are arguably listening them through things like BBC Sounds or Tune In and stuff, ways that are embedded into smart speakers that make listening to the station incredibly easy without having to lift a single finger. So it's something, again, it's traditional listening to radio isn't going anywhere, but the way of smart speakers especially is growing at a huge rate, very, very quickly. So, having a smart speaker just enables a lot more accessibility in your station in a way that is, naturally progressing with the way of the world. Yeah. I guess like a lot more people are finding things like smart speakers just as essential as a TV in their front room or a fridge in their kitchen. Having something like a smart speaker in the corner of a sitting room, it's just a natural addition, so I can listen to my favorite radio stations and change the light bulbs with it. So, it's something you should definitely consider. Again, you can build smart speakers through us. That's why we're giving you this accessibility. Because it's a huge growing trend and it's not seeing any dipping down anytime soon. What you can get available is obviously Alexa skills, Google Home devices. They're the main ones that people have in their homes. And it's definitely the way of the world with online radio, and it should be something you should consider to help you get on there. And I guess kind of like the final, other big place that you can, or places that you can make stations available on are things like internet radio directories. I talk about them a little bit during my my monthly sort of demonstrations that I do, but at least kind of dive into a little bit more of what exactly is an internet radio directory.
Yeah, so internet radio directories are essentially, they're kind of like these platforms that are like big libraries of loads of radio stations, from kind of very kind of mainstream kind of commercial radio stations like Absolute Radio to the community radio station that might be broadcasting down the end of your street or so. So there's quite a lot of internet radio directories. The big one used to be TuneIn, but they, for some reason that we're not quite sure about, stopped accepting new radio stations a few years ago. However, there are still plenty of free and very large internet radio directories that people can submit their radio station to, one of which would be Streamer.
Yeah.
And according to Streamer, they have 10 million users.
Wow. So a lot of people listen to radio,
Yeah.
and a lot of people potentially then hopefully listen to yours.
And another one could be internet radio, and I think they have, I'm not sure the amount of users they have, but I know that they have close to 20,000 radio stations listed on that site. So yeah, internet radio directories are essentially a way that you can connect listeners with different radio stations, and also means listeners can explore radio stations, perhaps based on genre or theme, and then just discover new radio stations. And so it's a good way to potentially get more listeners.
Yeah, and I guess some of these internet radio directories, they have their own, official apps or skills again. So, as I mentioned, a lot of people listen to stations through TuneIn, or another good way of getting your station through a third-party provider is things like Deezer, making your podcast or radio station available on there, opening up the app even on like Sonos smart speakers and things. Radio Garden is another one as well that a lot of people like to use. So these are places that are ultimately sort of great for making your station available, because the key to using internet radio directories is you really want to make your station as available as possible, in hopes of more people, in the most polite sense, stumbling upon it, really.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, there's no need to make a station available on, hundreds and hundreds of them and then direct people to a big list of everywhere they can find your station. The idea is you just want to make your station easier to find, in the hopes of, if someone Googles the name of your station, or I guess something similar, a lot of those results on that first Google page are, your station linking to your Facebook page or a Streamer page or things like that.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning that a lot of internet radio directories have kind of connections, relationships with smart speakers. So by putting your radio station on a particular internet directory, it might mean that your radio station can then get played on a smart speaker.
Yeah, so it's just another way of capitalising on, the growing trends of radio. And on the topic mentioned before about TuneIn, it's been kind of like a development with kind of them now. They did, obviously, as you say, previously stopped accepting submissions for a number of years, since like 2018, I think maybe, but they're making somewhat of a comeback.
Yeah, so they recently announced the launch of a kind of program, for want of a better word, a new platform called TuneIn On Air. And this, unfortunately, it's only available in America, so I'm sorry to all of our listeners across the rest of the world. But so what they're saying is that the people that sign up to the TuneIn On Air platform will have access to 30 million listeners. So obviously it's a huge pond. However, it isn't free.
Yeah.
It is going to cost, I worked it out as $83 a month.
Wow. So yeah, not as cheap as free as it used to be, but
I did see on one of the community radio pages on Facebook today that someone said that they had signed up to TuneIn On Air and have their listenership has increased, but who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, I guess it's because in the realm of internet radio directories, it's the one that people have heard of. Even if they don't fully understand what it is, it's a very known name. So I think just the idea of having your station available on there, it's the go-to place for people to listen to radio. So, there's no surprise that audience numbers have increased with someone who has recently launched on there. Obviously just open to US broadcasters at the moment at a cost of, might say about $80 a month. But, it's something, I guess launching a station doesn't always have to be expensive, doesn't always have to be cheap. But, I guess if you want results and listeners, then sometimes you may have to spend a little to hopefully rake in a lot in the future. So tune in on air, find a bit more information about that online. But to our US broadcasters, that might be another avenue that has recently opened up for you now.
Yeah.
So that kind of covers it in terms of where you can make your station available. But it's all about I guess sort of making your station known. How do you shout out about it really? So your station is available to stream. Again, imagine, Lucy, your station is ready to rock. So how are you ultimately going to tell people that it exists, because social media might not really be everyone's cup of tea, mine included. It's something I don't use a huge amount of time, but I can't deny how vital it is to really promoting your online radio station. After all, I mentioned this before, there's no better way to promote an internet radio station than by attracting people who are currently at that moment in time using the internet. That's how it ultimately works. You want to drag people in through social media, because chances are a lot of your audience are currently on it, on their phones or the computers and such. So I guess arguably it's a bit more beneficial to have your station available on across all of these social media platforms. But obviously there are quite a few that you could appear on that could be beneficial to you. So Lucy, do you mind giving us like a rundown on I guess the most popular platforms and how they may best be used in the realm of promoting your online radio station?
Yeah, absolutely. It's obviously first worth pointing out that different platforms kind of can get different demographics of users. But let's start with the big giant, which is obviously still Facebook. And Facebook is kind of very beneficial to internet stations in the sense that it has so many strings to its marketing bow. Like whatever you want to do on Facebook, you can kind of do it in the realm of social media. And so, as we mentioned before, you could set up a page, and so that functions as like a mini website. You have the option to go live on Facebook if you wanted to broadcast a particular event that's happening at your radio station, or kind of show everyone the radio station working in real time. You can upload any kind of form of media content, really. You can upload videos, upload images. So Facebook's got a lot of going on, definitely. And what I like about Facebook is that it allows you to kind of throw lots of links in there. Other social media platforms are quite fussy about how many clickable links they put you on. Let you have. But Facebook is kind of a bit of a free-for-all. It's kind of
a bit lawless, just free-for-all, yeah.
Don't we know it? So that is definitely one of the benefits of Facebook. Like if you can put a direct link into to stream, or you can put a direct link into your radio station in a Facebook post, for example. So that's definitely a benefit.
Yeah, and you mentioned just about Facebook it has a specific, I guess these days anyway, a specific market appeal or a generational sort of appeal to it. So how would that necessarily benefit or work to an advantage or a disadvantage to a new station?
Yeah, so it's worth remembering that Facebook now is pretty old, and so its demographic is slightly of that older demographic. I think there's less kind of the Gen Z. Is that it, Gen Z?
If you're one of them, please confirm.
Yeah, I'm too old to know what generation you are. I think there's less Gen Z users on Facebook, but there are kind of more kind of like the kind of over 40s, over 50s or so. And so it really depends on who your target audience is. Obviously, if that's your target audience, then you want to be focusing more probably on Facebook than you would on, say, TikTok.
Yeah.
So it's really about knowing what your target audience is and understanding the demographics that each kind of social media platform attracts.
Yeah. So if you know full well the age bracket that you're trying to capture, then I guess it's fair to say, as you mentioned, the older generation are the ones that are more likely to interact with you. Not saying that they're young, obviously, I use it occasionally. There's still a lot of younger people still on it, but it's more, as I say, a bit more of an older demographic these days anyway. So it'll either work to your advantage or not so much at all. But it's, I guess, if you know inside out what your target audience is, then it'll be a potentially very powerful tool for you.
Yeah, but conversely, I do have to add that there's a lot of radio stations that demographics are much younger, are Gen Z, and they still do have a Facebook presence.
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah.
It's not necessarily to be sniffed at. So the next one I'll probably talk about is Instagram. Okay,
so Instagram, again, that's probably the first social media platform that made me go, what on earth is this? I don't want to use it. But that's just because I'm not a big social media user. But yeah, so to the uneducated like myself, what on earth is it?
So Instagram, to start with, was essentially just a way where people would upload an image. And you can't upload anything else. And at the start of Instagram, you couldn't upload anything else. It was just an image. So rather than Twitter, which is very word-based, this is just like, we're just going to let you have a upload images in a typical square format. It has developed quite a bit since its birth, and now it has all sorts of different kind of features and stuff which people can take advantage of. So it has Reels, it has IGTV, it has Instagram Live, and all these have kind of different features that you can kind of chop up your content and kind of tailor to each different feature or so. So the Reels, for example, are kind of short clips. So you might have like a little short clip of a live band in your radio station, or you're one of your presenters telling a funny joke, and you can then upload that as a reel onto Instagram.
Right.
And the beauty of that is that it goes onto like a kind of explore page on Instagram. So it won't just necessarily be seen by your followers on Instagram. It could potentially be seen by anybody on Instagram. So it is a great way of kind of getting more kind of followers and hopefully converting them into listeners as well.
Yeah, I guess it's a nice way of visually promoting your audio in a way. You can film yourself in the studio for a little bit, just dancing to something, or just literally saying, talking about a particular track that's playing, giving like kind of like a link in a way, and just inviting people in and doing pictures of your studio, or it's a way just to invite people in on a purely visual way. And because I guess arguably first impressions are easy to generate from an image, rather than click on this link and see what you think. If it looks like you're having a good time, if you're showing people album artwork of something that you're just about to play, then it's an easier way to, I guess, attract people in there.
Yeah, and I think people like to put a face to a name as well, and people kind of like to see as well as hear kind of what's going on as well. So it definitely has its advantages.
Cool.
The one thing I would say about Instagram actually is that it only allows one clickable link on your profile or so.
Right.
So that's why you'll have seen many users use like a link in bio, and that when you click that, it then kind of allows the user to click on different links that you might have referred to. Equally, some people use like link trees, in which it kind of directs to a separate website which has all the kind of links to different things on. So something worth bearing in mind.
Cool. Okay. And obviously you mentioned it a few times just before, whilst discussing Facebook and Instagram, but Twitter, how's that obviously I guess we're all familiar with Twitter. How could that be potentially used for online radio?
As I said, Twitter is kind of very word-based or so, but it's very easy to kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Consume kind of a lot of information kind of quickly and easily with Twitter. So, people scrolling through can kind of go on there for kind of 10 minutes or so and get quite a lot from it. So if Twitter is the kind of the preferred platform of some of your listeners, and it is for a lot of people have Twitter but might not have Facebook or Instagram, for example, then you don't want to discount it in case you're kind of closing the door to them. But so Twitter, you can still put up images as well as your kind of videos and stuff, but obviously there is a character limit of Twitter, which perhaps is a good thing, because you won't spend hours slaving away over deciding what to write as your social media posts or so. It can just be a quick and easy, this is going live at this time, check us out, tune in, along with a link or so.
Yeah, and it's easy for people to come and like and retweet things you're making. So again, I guess it provides not only you a means of promoting your own station, but it provides an easier way of people to actually promote and market the station for you. Like I said, your audience and your fans or artists or DJs, just as like retweet or like away, and that's it. Your station is then taken on leaps and bounds on the media space. Yeah. And then again, a young one, which again, I have no idea what's involved in it. TikTok. Tell us a little bit about TikTok.
So, TikTok, I don't have huge amount of personal experience with TikTok either, because after spending about 5 minutes on it once, I realised that I will spend my whole life on it if I do not delete it very promptly. But TikTok is, essentially it's a kind of a video sharing platform, I guess. But the videos are all typically quite short. So it's short form visual audio content, essentially. I think the videos are 15 seconds long.
Right.
I may have just made that up or so, but they're very short, shorter than what we're kind of used to having on social media. And TikTok, again, doesn't really give you many clickable links as an option. However, it is a really great way. It's so very kind of quick and easy to use. It is a really great way of kind of building a bit of hype around a show, of kind of showing people very directly, oh, this is what's happening here and now, kind of doing a very quick stream essentially of saying, like, this is what's going on in our radio station. So yeah, it has its advantages. And also the thing about TikTok is obviously there's loads of TikTok challenges. There's where people do either dance routines or try and make food or whatever it is. So TikTok can be a good way for internet radio stations to kind of engage with stuff that's going on in perhaps a particular community, or engage with a group of people and kind of show what their brand's about.
Yeah, I guess on that, coming off that, I guess it's a creative way of essentially jumping on the bandwagon a little bit. So if there are things going around, you're like, hey, I can do that. I can, you might see like some people on Twitter or Facebook might do a post or a hashtag because it's trending, and you find a way to incorporate into your show or or your station. And I guess if there is a challenge, a nice easy way of creating a bit of content on TikTok is joining in with the fun, I guess. And if you've got DJs or guests that may have their own following, stuff's an easy way for them just to build hype for you about they're about to perform or they're going in to chat about you. So it's I guess a more creative way of being part of the conversation in a really cheesy sense. What's the sort of demographic of TikTok?
I think it is kind of the Gen Z, as I mentioned before. They're the kind of group of people, demographic of kind of people that are really, that have the majority of users for TikTok or so. So like you're looking at kind of teenagers to like kind of early 20s or so.
Yeah, but that's not to say that it's exclusively for them. Like I said, it's a growing platform, and if people see the appeal of it, they will jump on it. So it's definitely a nice, creative way of, like I say, doing a little 15-second video about what you're doing. And it's like Instagram, rather than it just being a picture of this is what we're all about, little cheeky video of what we're all about, and it can reach a huge wide range of people. And are people like recommended videos, like, or do they have to search for specific channels that they want to check out?
So there's on TikTok, there's a kind of, you first log in or open the app, there's a kind of a For You page, which is, I say page, but it's kind of, it's presenting you straight away with a video.
Right.
And then you can keep scrolling through videos, and you can then kind of like the ones that you like, or so you could kind of check that person out or so.
A bit like a dating app in a sense that you can sort of swipe through a lot of channels, and then if there's any that you like the look of, the sound of, then it's something that you can, I guess, follow or look further into. Yeah,
so that it's the good thing is you're not waiting for people to like you back.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But yeah, you can like and follow those people, and I think if I'm not mistaken, I think that the kind of algorithm will then just kind of throw up a bit more content that's a bit more tailored to you. So the more you put in, the kind of more you'll get out of it in a way. And the one thing worth mentioning about TikTok is that things can blow up on TikTok very quickly. So you can get a lot of views and a lot of kind of people watching your content on TikTok, which is kind of, things can go seemingly a bit more viral, a bit easier on TikTok. So if you've got good bit of content that you want to get out there, might be worth putting it on TikTok. Who knows?
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, when it comes to social media, is that it's something that I mentioned to a lot of people. Being someone who isn't really across social media because I don't really like using it. But again, I can't deny how beneficial and how much. Just how much it can improve the reach and and the appeal of your station to your audiences. You can take it, take on leaps and bounds. And what I would say is, if you are unfamiliar with how a particular social media platform works, go and find out. If you are unsure on how best to use Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, go and find out how to do that, or consult someone who, someone younger or just a friend or a family who might have a better understanding of it. Do it, because ideally you want to make your station as accessible as possible, and social media is the key to doing that. So spend a bit of time creating a Facebook page, have a little dabble in doing an Instagram post or a TikTok video. It's just kind of go out your way to jump into a realm that you may not necessarily be comfortable with, because it is ultimately going to be what's going to be at the forefront of driving interest into your station.
Yeah, absolutely.
But kind of we're going to carry on talking about social media in our next little stop on the journey. But before then, what kind of other ways can, I guess, people promote your station? Because believe it or not, before this old digital age, you could actually meet people in person, really. So what's a good way of, I guess, marketing your station in the actual real world, I guess?
Well, I guess that would potentially come down to events. It's always a good shout, I think. So you can either do kind of a local event or try and go a bit bigger. But a local event might be a good place to start. So kind of inviting your kind of DJs to come out and do like some kind of live sets, or any kind of bands that are involved in your radio stations. If you're not so much music focused, but you're kind of more talk radio station, you could get a panel in of like an interesting kind of panel or conversation or so that you think you want to host, and then just basically market that to your community or so. And create an event, because I think that is a really great way of kind of not only getting to meet people that might become potential listeners, but it's also people that might want to get involved in the radio station, be that they might want to sponsor the radio station, they might want to volunteer themselves, they might want to engineer your shows. Like, a lot of people want to get involved in radio, and I think having like an event also kind of shows that you're giving a little back to the community. It's not all about taking, you're not wanting a lot from people, you're trying to give back to them. So I think like events are really probably a really good way to reach people outside of the social media realm. Yeah,
I've stumbled across somewhat. I mean, again, the beauty of internet radio like Radio.co is you can literally broadcast from anywhere in the world. As long as you have an internet connection, you can set up a radio station in the back of your car if you want to. But I've stumbled across at least one station who were busking, but instead of it being a typical busker, like a bit of guitar or a singer, they were just had a laptop and they were just doing their radio show from a town shopping centre and things like you got people doing interest, because it's not just playing music, but you got DJ doing some links, talking, trying to engage and ad lib and improv with people walking by, trying to get people involved. I guess argue some of it might have been a little awkward or a little cringe, but that's someone putting themselves out there, and it attracted a lot of media attention. People were talking about it on Twitter, on Facebook. It was in the local paper. So even things like that, just make you and your station a bit more out there, because we always forget, in this digital age, that, hey, once upon a time we did all meet and only talk face to face, or, so I think doing something a bit of a creative outreach like that, or even just having a big banner and you just saying, where this is the website you can go to launch while we launch the station, here's a sticker, here's something, it's just getting yourself a little bit out there.
And obviously we've had our kind of one-to-one and in real life contact with people really restricted in the past couple of years. I think really now there is quite a first for people to kind of be able to do things kind of face-to-face with people and stuff as well. So, I definitely agree.
Yeah, and particularly if it's a local station or the focus on local community, the best thing you can do is get out in that community and just go to local events or sporting events and stuff that are just down the road. Do a bit of reporting there. Just make yourself known. You don't even need to cause a fuss. You could just sit quietly in the corner handing things out, or with a sign or something. Just if it's particularly a local community station, be part of that local community conversation. And then again, I touched on it just a moment. I've touched on the word a few times during this, but podcasting. So a few years ago, I did a webinar all about why podcasting is hugely beneficial to broadcasters, and the simple answer to that was really it just opens up your audience to. It opens up your station to a much wider audience due to a new way of consuming your content. So how could someone take their online radio station and, I guess, turn it or recycle it into a podcast? I mean, first of all, what is a podcast? What would you describe a podcast as?
This may not be the official term, but
it is now.
It is now. Take note, podcasters. I would describe it as basically some kind of on-demand kind of piece of audio that you can just listen to as and when you choose. Yeah. In its most simple terms.
Yeah, it's essentially, it's a an on-demand version of your radio show, and a radio show is a live version of your podcast. They're essentially the same things. They just change depending on how they're consumed. And if you're doing an online radio show, whether it's a talk or a music show, then turning it into a podcast, that just means making sure it's just strictly talk-based. You can edit some music out, or if it's a talk show you're doing anyway, great, you've got yourself a podcast there. And just by uploading it and broadcasting out onto a different platform, you can have essentially your station or your brand available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, even TuneIn. They're not accepting radio stations, but they still accept podcasts. So that's also a cheeky way of getting on TuneIn. But podcasting is strictly a talk-based platform. So if you do try and upload to things like Spotify and Apple Podcasts, they will remove it because it's they want it just to be original talk content. But yeah, you can take that file, you can upload it somewhere, and you're instantly opening out your station to potentially millions and millions of listeners. Yeah. Chances are millions and millions of listeners may not listen to it, but that's not the point. The idea is you're making your station even more available in a arguably easier to consume way. I'm not really going to listen to your live radio show, Lucy, at 6:00 tonight because I'll probably cooking my tea or putting my daughter to bed. What I will do is I'll listen to it when everyone has gone to bed and it's 9 p.m. or something like that, and I'm listening to it in my when I feel a bit more comfortable. So it's just adding again more strings to your brand's bow, really. It really doesn't take too much time to do, and it can really open out your station to a lot more people in, as I say, in an arguably much easier to consume way. So podcasting, it's definitely hugely beneficial for a radio host, especially if you want to evolve the brand of your station.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. As you've mentioned, it just gives people an opportunity to be able to listen to your radio station as and where they want, because everyone's got lives, and they just can't, with all the different shift patterns, or you've got children, you've got other commitments. It just means that people can actually listen to it when it's a good time for them.
Yeah, and it's a good way to do it in reverse as well. So if you've got a podcast and you're thinking of having a station, we've seen a huge increase here on Radio.co about podcasters who are looking for an alternative way to make their episodes available, or podcast networks who have a dozen or so shows under their belt and they want to have a different way of consuming it. Having the rise of podcast radios, having 24-hour streams of episodes back to back, or people doing live versions of their podcasts, it's a different way for your podcasters and even yourself to do your show in a slightly different way. So it also works just as well in reverse. So whether you are a podcaster first or a radio host first, incorporate both platforms into it, and you'll just opens up more and more ways to get your brand out there. So we're going to return back to social media now, mainly talking about, you're on these platforms, you've taken the time to create your profiles, and you're drumming up a little bit of interest. But what do you actually do on those platforms now? What actual sort of content type works, essentially? So Lucy, are you able to give us, some tips or some examples about what kind of content can work for a station if you are promoting yourself primarily through social media? What works?
Yeah, sure. So if you think about a platform such as Instagram, what you really want to be doing is stopping the scroll. So people are there, they're scrolling and scrolling through Instagram or so, and you want them just to pause on your post and take in the information there. So to do that, you obviously need quite visually captivating kind of content or so. So you're thinking about having kind of a very kind of visually interesting image. A lot of what's quite common at the moment is people are using memes and GIFs. And that's a great way of kind of saying, firstly, oh, hi, as a brand, we know this reference, this cultural reference. And also it's kind of giving other people a point of reference. And they're like, Simpsons GIF, hello. Yeah. Or Simpsons meme. And then they remember that episode with a nice flush of nostalgia. And they're taking the content that you're kind of pairing with it, or the information about that radio show, for example, equally having images of your presenters, or as you mentioned earlier, a picture of records that are going to be played in the next hour or two, stuff like that, which is really visually interesting, is definitely obviously the way forward on those kind of visually centric kind of social media platforms.
Yeah, because I guess arguably the reason behind having a Facebook or an Instagram page isn't to tell people what you're doing. It's just to I'll invite people to like and comment and share what you're doing, because in them doing that, in your audience doing that, they're giving your station free marketing, and it opens up someone who's just shared a funny meme or a reference to something or a misheard lyric. That always goes down well. If someone's just sharing that on Facebook, that's then sharing to someone else who wouldn't have found your station, and they might find it funny and they share it again. A good sort of personal example was for a radio station I used to work at a number of years ago. Our social media pull was pretty good, but we weren't getting sort of huge numbers until I just found a picture of, I think it was Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters. Someone had superimposed his head onto the head of a chef with a mixing bowl, and the misheard lyric was, "I've got another confection to bake." I even forgot what Foo Fighters song it is. But The Pretender, isn't it, I think? So that was just something really silly. We thought, okay, that works well with our demographic, our age, the music interest. Let's just share that. And that blew up. And that was one of the most shared, most interactive posts that we'd done for years. And that was something so simple. It was just, we just found a funny image of a misheard lyric, and we had thousands upon thousands and thousands of people sharing it, interacting with it. That literally, for me to find that image and post, it took seconds. I just thought it was funny, and I thought, hey, our audience might find it funny as well, because that's our demographic, and it worked. So, things that make you laugh, or things that invite opinions, things like, this is the greatest album ever, prove me I'm wrong, or something, things like that. It just gets people aggressively voicing their opinions about their favourite music or their favourite TV shows and things. But it's a good way of getting people interacting with it, which is so simple to do.
Yeah, it's all about getting people to kind of talk to you as a brand or as an internet radio station, for sure. Yeah,
it's just, getting people to talk and interact. 'Cause like I said, the more people that are interacting with your things, the more chances are people are going to stumble upon your station, which again is the whole point of making your station as widely available. Yep. Are there any particular broadcasters that you've spoken to or sort of worked with, Lucy, that kind of you feel like they've got a really good way of managing their social media, or particular content that they do?
So one broadcaster, one internet radio station that I've been very impressed with is Soho Radio. Because they do loads of really amazing different bits and bobs. So they do a thing called vinyl sessions, which, if you're a self-professed vinyl junkie like me, is incredibly cool. So they basically get musicians and artists to come in and play, a track or two of their own music or so, and they then have like a little kind of mini vinyl contraption pressing plant type thing, where it records the song that the musicians have just played, and it presses it onto a one-off bit of like acetate, essentially. So there's a one-off record, only one in the whole world, of that live performance, which is really cool. And what Soho Radio do is they kind of take clips of that and they post it onto their Instagram reels. And then they also kind of take a bit of a longer clip and they put it on their Instagram videos, and then they put the full kind of song and the full session on YouTube. So what they do is essentially they tease Instagram users, because they know that they can't put the whole song also on Instagram. So they tease Instagram users with their, this is who we had in our kind of studio today. And then by teasing them in, they then get them over to YouTube to kind of engage with the content that way.
Yeah. A lot, obviously, things like that is a lot of work, but what they're doing is they're repurposing that one bit of content and turning it into 6 different pieces of content, all on different platforms and such, ultimately to lead people to their end game in a way, which is go to our YouTube channel and check out the full thing. And that's really cool. And, of course, things like Soho Radio, I guess they have maybe a bit of potentially a bit of a budget, or they've got a bit of a reputation, but that comes with time, and it's not saying that listening can't do anything like that in the future. It's just a case of finding what works for you, what you've got available to you. Fair enough, you've not got the ability to record a vinyl pressing and do little snippets of it, but what can you do? You've got you teasing maybe even a funny anecdote you're going to be talking about, or you have got a musician coming in who's just going to sing or talk about a book or a piece of music they've written or something. Just find what works for your audience, what works with the realms of what you have available, and just find ways of repurposing it, because it's going to take time. The thing you'll spend most of your time doing with your radio station is promoting it. The content will come naturally. It'll be quite easy to put together, arguably, but find ways of repurposing that content that you've got, because what's the point of just doing something and releasing it once? Just repurpose it and repackage it into different forms.
And it goes back to what we were kind of saying earlier, how different people like to use different forms of social media. Some people might engage more with one feature of social media than another. And so you're kind of just ensuring that if whatever people are into, they've got a way of kind of engaging with your content. Yeah,
because you mentioned it before, you don't want to alienate people who use exclusively or primarily different platforms. So why spend all that time only repurposing something for Facebook when you've got audiences who could potentially react to it a lot quicker and a lot better on Instagram or Twitter? So that's why I feel it is good to have a presence across all of these platforms, because you never know who's listening or who's willing to listen.
It's true. Very true.
So so that's kind of a brief idea on things that work. It's all about finding what works for you in the confines of your station and your audience, finding unique creative ways of doing it. And content-wise, don't bombard people with paragraphs about what your show's going to do, or tune in at this week because there's a link here, comment, like, subscribe, things like that. You just want to give people a little tease or something that they can easily share and interact with, and that will ultimately be what will drive the audience in, hopefully, anyway. So that's kind of it in terms of how you can make your station available, attract your audiences, how you can actually do that. But once you've got your audience, how do you keep them, really? I mean, it's kind of $1 million question, really. You don't really know how you're going to keep your audiences. Listeners, truth be told, are a fickle bunch. So if they listen to something, they may just switch off instantly because of one single song they didn't like, and they're never going to listen to your station again. People may listen to your station from January to November. As soon as you play a bit of Christmas music, they drop out. But
That would be me.
but hey, they might return in January. Yeah. So it's things like that. You shouldn't be bothered about listeners dropping out, or because they're always, it's always a roller coaster. They're always going to be coming in and coming out. What you've got to do is just stick with your brand and what you want to do. And the best way of doing that is kind of a couple of recommendations, really, to ensure that when you do have new listeners coming in, they're getting the best version of you and your station. So I've kind of put together a couple of do's and don'ts, really, some good advice. So the first thing is kind of about presenter tips. I mean, Ulysses, are you familiar? I mean, are you a presenter at all? Are you? I mean, after this webinar, I'd definitely say you're trying to.
Well, thank you. I usually like to be the other side of the microphone.
Right.
But I've dabbled in a bit of presenting in my time.
Yeah.
Just a little smidge. And
this is probably the longest time you've gone, maybe?
I used to do a 2-hour radio show, but I did break it up with music, so
Gotcha.
I was kind of cheating. In a way.
But even in that sort of limited sense that you've done it, you have an idea of what kind of works for the audience, or what can people get the best impression of you. So these are a couple of points. They may not necessarily apply to everybody watching, but it's just a good things to keep in mind anyway when you're doing it. So one of the main things, it was actually the first thing I learned 14 years ago when I started studying radio, was the fact that radio is an intimate, personal experience for your listener. And what I mean by that is the last thing you want to do is call your listeners guys, or hey everybody. You're not interested in everybody, you're interested in you. You want people to say, we're going to be playing your favourite songs, or I want you to get in touch. It's all about, you've got to make your station personal, because we are most likely listening to the radio with earphones on, or in our own home, which is a personal space for us. So just refrain from addressing people as plural. It's all about you. It can sound a little disheartening, but kind of present as if there's only one person listening. But that is a loyal listener. So that's the good way to go about it. So that's what I would do first. Particularly if you are going to be a local community station, you really want to be big on being hometown proud. There's no point saying that you are a local station for the community, but you don't reference anything to do with your hometown, your home city. So change that. Really make sure that if you are wanting to attract the local audience, you are appealing and relevant to the local audience. So never shy from local accents or local jokes, even just anecdotes that only a few people in that town are going to get. That's still being just exclusively you're based in the hometown. You may very well get global people listening, which is awesome if that happens. But if you're a local station, there's no point trying to broadcast to people on the other side of the world, because most likely what you're saying and doing is not relevant to them. They may just enjoy it anyway, which is great. But be hometown proud, really shout about where you're from. So that's another good little fact, I'd say. Kind of on that note as well, understand your audience, your niche and appeal. Because if you're looking to promote and attract a wider audience, as I say, you need to make sure that what you're broadcasting is, I guess, accessible to everybody in a sense, So if you, I guess some of it comes down to watching your tone or any sort of, if you're a bit hesitant about any language or as in foul language, I mean by that, kind of make sure if you want to attract a wider audience, make sure it is enjoyable by all, really, in a sense. But also things about a niche or a niche audience, depending on where you're from. This works very well with podcasting as well, is that a niche audience is a loyal one. It may be a small audience that you have, but they are listening to your station or your podcast specifically because what you plan on talking about or playing is relevant to them. It may be a small community, but it's a loyal one if they enjoy what you're doing and you are knowledgeable about what you're talking about. So don't be afraid to get a niche audience, because they are ultimately the best audiences to attract in first. So go niche and then maybe expand. But yeah, definitely a niche audience is something that you should look towards when starting your audience, at least. They say go big or go home. In this sense, go niche, and then if that don't work, go home. And because the last one, again, it's something that is often overlooked, but promote your fellow presenters and even shows. Arguably, you're promoting competition in a sense if it's another local radio station, but hey, if you're sharing the same audience space, promoting another station, another host, they could end up doing the same, and you're unlocking audiences that were just out of your reach initially, and now they're obtainable for you. So don't be afraid to promote your DJs, any guests, any other stations, because ultimately networking is what we want to do, and that's a great way of just opening up your station to more people, is by simply shouting about it with others in hopes that they do the same. Yeah. So that's kind of things to do on air anyway. But I've got some other tips, but we'll break up from listening to me talk for a little bit. And I guess, Lucy, any common pitfalls, would you say, that you've either learned from your personal experience or other stations that you've interacted with?
Yeah, so when I've kind of spoken to other radio stations and kind of been working with other radio stations, there's a few common pitfalls which are so easy to fix and can be really kind of disastrous if you do. So the first one is kind of not making your radio station kind of easy to listen to. Mm-hmm. So we mentioned it before, but the amount of times when I've gone onto a website of a particular brand and I know they have a radio station, but it's just impossible to find. Yeah. And I can't find, for the love of life, I can't find any way in which I can play this radio station. And if it is, just so happens that it's on a different kind of URL, different website, you just need to include that with a link and say,
a bit of signposting.
Just signpost it. Just kind of look at your kind of, your personal website or your Facebook page or so as if you're completely new to it and you haven't spent hours kind of trying to sort it out, and just think, how is the user experience right now? How easy is it for someone just to click and hear play? Because there's no point promoting your radio station on social media and engaging with all your audiences and running events if people can't listen to it.
Yeah, I kind of following on from that is advice I always give to people when they're talking about social media or, how can people find your station. When you are starting to look at social media to promote your station as, you want to find handles and usernames that are best suited for your station. So if I was to launch Phil FM, ideally, I would like to create a profile on Twitter where my username is @PhilFM, because if people typed in Phil FM on Google, they'll find it on Twitter. That's my station. There's no point calling something called Phil Radio 123, up and down or something like that, because that's nothing to do with my station. They're not going to find it. So when you are choosing a name for your station, try and find a user profile or a username that is available that works for you. So, hey, Phil FM might not be ready, but Phil FM UK might, or Phil FM Manchester, or, things like that. So when you are coming up with a name, try and find Twitter, Instagram, Facebook handles that make your station incredibly easy to find, because ultimately that's where people are going to be searching for you when they find you first.
Absolutely. Another common pitfall I have is just that sometimes radio stations aren't live when they say they're going to be live. So we all get it. You start your radio station, you think it's great, I'm going to broadcast 24/7, I'm going to have live bands, I'm going to have DJ sets, I'm going to have panels, discussions, and that is an incredible amount of work. So if you're starting out, my recommendation is that you kind of start small and you make sure that you kind of get everything down, get all the basics down, and then you start to expand. Because there's nothing more frustrating as listeners when this radio station says it's live till 10 p.m. and you go on at 9 p.m. and it's dead air.
Yeah.
So to start small, be reliable. That's how you're going to build up that listener base. Because if you've directed people to your radio station and then you're not doing what you say you're going to do, i.e. you're not playing the certain music that you're going to say you're going to play, or you're not live when you say you're going to be, people won't return.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So,
it's don't oversell and kind of make good on your promises, I think, to your audience. And if you're worried about, how do I promote all these 12 shows I want to do? Well, the idea is maybe consider not, kind of just build all your promoting around one show. You might be doing loads throughout the week. That's fine. You can do that. But if you know that the show that you're most excited to do is every Friday, 6 till 9, promote that. Spend all your time getting your audience into that. And then if they enjoy that show, they'll then stick around, listen to more.
Yeah.
So don't overcomplicate and oversell things. It's just, start off a bit smaller and then eventually expand.
Yeah. So those are my 2 common pitfalls that you can avoid to ensure that you're going to keep attracting those listeners.
Good. And then last sort of things before we go into sort of experiences from you listening, it's kind of just a couple of quick equipment tips or kind of other recommendations to make. So I talk a lot about equipment, and I would recommend one of the first things you do is investing in a good microphone. Things like what we're using. Shure SM7B. They're kind of like the industry standard. They're an XLR microphone. They're a fantastic microphone. This isn't mine, but I have one myself at home. But they do retail for about £300 to £400, or $400 or $500 or so. So it may not be something you want to jump into immediately, but still, it's good to have a good budget for a microphone. So things like, I would say about £100, $100 or so at least for a good microphone. And there are plenty of companies like Rode, Shure. The Blue Yeti microphone is very popular with podcasters. So just you spending a decent amount of money, because there's no point having really tip-top content and you sound terrible. So invest in a good quality microphone. Will get rid of a lot of your presenting issues. If you're doing music broadcasting, consider using things like DJ interfaces and software, just to add a bit more creativity and control over your music playing. Adjust the acoustics of your broadcasting space. You see behind us, we've got a lot of foam tiles. I think arguably we've gone a little overboard. There's no need to cake an entire wall, or at least all 4 walls of your room. But put in a few here and there, let the sound bounce around. You can get things like this quite cheaply off like Amazon, for a little bit, for a half a dozen or so. If you don't want to spend money, why not just make sure the room you're broadcasting in has some soft furnishings, or put some blankets around, some pillows, just to help the sound bounce around. Or if you're doing some voice recording, like I do occasionally at home, just put a duvet over my head. Kind of works.
We've all been there.
So just to kind of think about the acoustics of your room. You don't need to have a studio space at all. Just make sure the room isn't just 4 bare walls with a lot of hard furniture and stuff. Just space things out a little bit. Something to consider making your station a one-stop shop. And what I mean by that is, if you are trying to launch as a local station for the community, make sure you're the only station the community end up listening to. So you're providing them not just great tunes and great chat, but also potentially news bulletins or reports on local sporting events, weather, travel reports. You don't need to do all of them, but it just means if you're catering to everyone in that community with everything they could possibly need from a radio station, why would they leave your station if you're giving them all of that? So something to consider. Commission yourself some imaging and production. So, again, something you don't need to spend thousands and thousands of pounds and dollars on. Just something that shouts about your station, a bit of a little Phil FM. That's pretty good. That we'll take a snippet of that. Try that. But things like that. Just things that are shout about your station that make you sound a bit more unique and professional. You're sounding like you've got some really good sounds and production for your station. Again, no need to spend a ton of money. I tend to direct people towards Fiverr. Have you had much experience using Fiverr?
I've not had much experience using Fiverr, no.
Oh, well, Fiverr's it's basically a marketplace for freelancers. So you can literally type in and browse for people from lots of different industries. It's good for the creative industry, like people who want things filmed or want things recorded or voiceovered. There is a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, they always say you can spend at least a $5, like $5, and you can get decent things done. So, you could spend $5 and get something that's amazing. You could also spend $50 and get something pretty naff. It's a mixed bag, but you can see people's previous works and reviews and things. But go somewhere like that. You can get some really good production for a few $100 maybe. Stuff that really makes your station stand out. So head there. And then my last little sort of recommendation is, again, something that I firmly stand by, and I do give this advice to a lot of people, is plan a soft launch of your station. Now, what I mean by this is, say you've got a date in mind for your station. So we're February at the moment. So say I wanted to launch a station 1st of April. It's probably not the best date to launch a station on the 1st of April, but hey, that's the date I've gone for. Now, I should bring that back maybe 2 weeks, 4 weeks maybe, and do a soft launch then. Because what's the point of promoting the launch of your station when you've actually got nothing to promote? Sure, you've got a Facebook page, but people don't know what it looks like, what it sounds like, so have a launch in mind, bring that back, and maybe for 2, 3, 4 weeks, just have a loop of an hour, 2, 3 hours of content to give people an idea on the sort of content you're going to play, maybe the sort of music, what the sound of the host is like. And it's something that you can actually then promote. So when you're on Facebook going, we've got 2 weeks till launch. If you want a taste, here it is. It's something to get people hyped and intrigued in your station. And it's something you can't do if you literally just wait until day one for people to actually hear what you have. So, sort of best advice there for me really is just do a soft launch, because it helps attract your audience, particularly through social media. That's pretty much everything from us anyway. So we asked in our newsletters and our emails for experiences from people who, either some marketing ploys didn't work for them or it did work for them. So we've actually kind of just to get in touch and share some experiences with us. So thank you very much for those that did. And if we don't get to read any of your thoughts or any of your questions, like I said, send an email, studio@Radio.co, and I'll help in any way I possibly can. I'm sure Lucy can chip in as well. I'm sure you've learnt a lot through all of this. I've learnt a lot from you as well. So hey, between us, we can definitely help. Okay, so the first sort of point was from Max from Radio Grace FM. And he said, I tried everything, flyers, social medias, and it looks like I am missing something, but what is it? Obviously, Max, I'm not too sure if they are the only means of promoting station that you've used, but in regards to those, I guess flyers, for example, in this day and age aren't really an effective tool. Sure, people can put something in the pocket or carry something away that has your station on, but the thing that flyer is lacking is a link. People can't click on a flyer and listen to your station. You need something that takes people to your station, and a flyer can't do that. A nice evolution of that is QR codes. You could create, instead of a flyer, a QR code for your station. At least that's something, whether it's a sticker or just a piece of paper, they're on the phone, boom, there you go. That's a link to the app you've created for your station or a stream of your station. So have a look at doing things like QR codes is a good evolution of the flyer. And again, so what you could do is appear at local events, as we mentioned before, public spaces where you can play or even broadcast your station from. So again, if the emphasis is on a local community station, be part of that local community. So I hope that's helped Max give you some food for thought. Reggie at wfnkweFunk.com says, Directories didn't work. I got over 25 and maybe 3 listeners out of them. It's a bit of a shame when you spend a lot of time trying to promote your station, but I guess ultimately, as we discussed, directories aren't really for attracting people to. Like, directories aren't going to promote your station, are they? No. They're just places that people can find your station, but ultimately you still need to do a lot of the promotion and direct people to those places to find them. You did mention that they can sort of recommend people to certain stations, can't you, from if they're listening to one station, it's relevant to yours. They can be sort of signposted to your station.
Yeah, I believe so. I'd have to double check that, but I believe so. I know that you can discover radio stations in different ways based on different internet directories. So I know that you talked about Radio Garden before, and that's got a really cool interface where it's basically a globe, and you kind of scroll around the globe and zoom in on the country, and you can see it you can click on a stream based on the location of where that radio station is. So that's kind of a cool way. But
yeah, I guess because you can listen to someone from your hometown and realise, oh, there's another one that's nearby and stuff, So, yeah, I mean, it's great, as I mentioned, to make your station as available as possible, but there's no need to necessarily be featured on every radio directory on Earth, because you are not going to give a link to all 25 places people can find your station. So my advice there would be to pick a few of the most popular ones, or maximum 10 or so that you like, and then direct people to one or two of them, a couple of them, or instead just have a website if you don't have one already, which obviously you do, because I did look at it, and just direct people to your website instead. It's a bit more beneficial for you and your brand then. Charles from 22 West Radio. With limited resources, I would use flyers, word of mouth at events, or post on relevant Reddit channels. What didn't work, however, was promoting through Facebook ads and Mixcloud, because they're just not effective these days, and it's a waste of money. Reddit, again, something actually didn't really occur to me, that people can use that for promoting their stations.
yeah, that didn't occur to me either. But
Are you overly familiar with the realm of Reddit?
I have not been a Reddit person in my time or so, but I have enjoyed things that have emerged into society because of Reddit. You know, I've enjoyed various funny threads and stuff like that, but I don't use Reddit personally that often. No,
but a good way of doing it is if you've got a particular guest coming in, or, you know, say, for example, I don't know, you've got a blues musician coming in to do a show. You know, there'll be a Reddit subreddit of blues, or maybe even dedicated to the era of blues music this guy's playing, or maybe a Reddit page dedicated to this particular person. You know, so the idea is just it's a way of just promoting your station to a very direct people. So it's kind of like you're appealing to that niche audience that you are ultimately trying to appeal to. I don't know what results are like for people coming into your station through Reddit, but it's definitely something that doesn't take a lot of time to do, and it's definitely, again, just another way of reaching your station to an exact audience.
Yeah, I think it's posting on Reddit is kind of quick, easy, free, and so, you know, any kind of return of investment you get off that is essentially kind of a bit of free bit of promotion in a way, isn't it? So if you don't put, you know, a little bit of time, you might get some more listeners from it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's good. A good point, Charles. So obviously that's hopefully made people aware of, you know, the advantages of potentially using Reddit. But things like you mentioned about Facebook and Facebook ads. You know, what do you make of, I guess, Facebook ads, about how they work?
So Facebook ads it's not something I'm too familiar with, also, because like was it Charles?
Yes, Charles. Yeah.
People kind of report them having different amounts of success also. The benefit of Facebook ads is they can be quite cheap, but how much kind of leads you get from it and how many people you kind of get tuning into a radio station is kind of very variable, should we say. So again, it might be a case of more just kind of going down if you don't have huge amounts of cash or so to promote your radio station, it may be just a case of kind of exploring the free options available to you and really kind of exhausting them before you turn to Facebook ads. Yeah,
I'd say with Facebook, I believe that the way you can really only have an impactful ad campaign is if you know exactly who your audience are. So, you know, you could spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on an ad campaign that's not really attracting the right people that you need, or you can spend less or more money attracting the exact target age, gender, where they are in the world. So I guess if you know your demographic inside out, you could do a fairly effective ad campaign, but how much that would cost, how much it would pay off, it's anyone's game. So look into it. I guess it's something that's maybe worth exploring for people who are a little curious, but I would say only go forward with it if you know your exact target audience, I'd say. But yeah, thank you very much for sharing, Charles. We also have Ralph from WESN, Epic Strategies Network. He says he's using the Podbean app as it helps drive people to his radio station, as the Podbean app has built-in live chats to interact with your audience.
Ooh.
Which is good. And obviously the great appeal of that, which obviously Ralph clearly sees, it's a much more attractive way of getting people invested in your station if they can be part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also means you don't have to rig up a phone line. I think perhaps the days of people calling into radio stations might be dwindling somewhat. I'm not entirely sure. However, the idea of just kind of being in a kind of a live chat room, that is definitely shown that it's kind of still quite popular in the form of, you can do it on YouTube, you can do it on Twitch, you can do it on kind of Facebook Live. I'm pretty sure you can kind of comment as it's happening or so. So I think the function of having a live chat at the time is really great for radio stations.
Yeah, particularly seeing it's something that we mentioned towards the start, is that you're attracting people to your station who are already on the internet. So if they're on your app, on this Podbean app, for example, listening to your station, chances are they can also then just open it up and send a text in things. So so it's really good. That's a really great way of getting people invested if they know that, hey, I can voice my opinion during this song, or I can get involved. If you want live callers, using something like this, what we've got, the Rodecaster Pro desk, has Bluetooth functionality, so you can actually hook a mobile phone to it and do calls through that way as well. So that's a nice, easy way of doing it. Regarding apps in general, so we're releasing some brand new apps in the coming months. Woo! And one of the features that we'll have, there will be a message feature on there. So not like a live chat, but it will have direct links to sending people an email, even a text if you make your number on there, Facebook posts and things. So there is a way to interact live whilst a show is on, so stay tuned for those. And one thing I guess to keep in mind is if you are only interacting with people on a public space, so like a public app or a public website, like a chat forum, it's not going to do huge amounts for your online visibility, because it is on the live chatting and promoting is happening on a private, or rather an exclusive app or site. If you're doing something in a public space, like interacting on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you're engaging with people publicly, which then comes into play about the the online visibility and accessibility of your station. So just keep in mind, if you are keeping things a bit more private, then it may not do you tremendous favors in terms of expanding your audience, whereas it will certainly it's a nice way of getting people to those platforms anyway. So but we should hopefully be having our own apps in the coming months, so stay tuned for those. So thank you very much, Ralph, for sharing that. And then the last one before we do finish comes from Alex from Johnston Sounds. So he says, for us being a small community station, we've used the local press to cover events and future events, and have developed a good relationship with the local council to help broadcast news before it's even published. We are also part of a business consortium that helps us not only find listeners, but local businesses that are interested in advertising with us. Finally, we rely on our team to promote each other at every chance they get. So a lot of really great success stories there from Alex. So I guess take it from Alex's point, it's something that I've mentioned a lot. I'm going to reiterate it again now, is if you are wanting to be a local community station, get involved with the local community. And getting things like the local press on board, local council on board, that's you being, I guess Alex can't really be more involved in the community there. So, he's got an outlet for news, he's got an outlet for public appeal and cross promotion with local councils and news. Networking, attending business to business meetings as well is something that actually I didn't really think of, but it's something that can be great, not just for listeners, but as he says, about attracting local advertisers. If you want to earn a revenue for your station, you have to go and get it. And attending these business to business sort of consortiums, which is a great word, just attending things like that, is a way to see face-to-face these local people and putting a face to the music, per se, and getting involved in your radio station. Yeah. So going outside of your comfort zone and attracting businesses, not just listeners. And on that point as well, it's something I meant to ask a little bit earlier about if you're having an active Facebook page or social media page, that's arguably a bit more attractive to local businesses these days, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think nowadays social media is definitely kind of seen, obviously, as the mouthpiece of a brand, and it's also where people kind of go to social media they go to social media to interact with a brand. Well, people take to Twitter or Facebook or so sometimes more than like the customer kind of services hotline or whatever. So I think just being like very kind of interactive and kind of talk with your community and talk with people is really attractive to other businesses.
Yeah.
Because it's like, by sponsoring this radio station or kind of like doing some kind of advertising or in some capacity, I'm exposing myself and my business to this kind of network of people that I don't really have access to otherwise. So it's all about kind of building up that community, getting people interacting with each other and stuff. And then once you've got that, obviously then businesses they're going to look quite positively upon that also and see that this is a great way to reach more people.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, ultimately, listeners is still just as important as it's ever been. But these days, you may have 20 listeners on your station, but all 20 of those are sharing everything that you're posting on Facebook, ultimately leading to dozens, hundreds, even thousands of views and likes and comments. So what's more appealing? The fact that you want 1,000 people listening who may not even do anything to bolster your business, or this small pool of people who are so loyal to your station, they are sharing and really singing your praises in every opportunity. So it's kind of it's a bit of a switch around. Of course, I say listens is still important, but focus on having that active social media profile and that identity, because that's an easy thing to look up. And if people can see you've got an audience constantly just sharing and singing your praises, that business is probably more likely to, let you share pictures of their products or their company name.
Yeah.
But no, thank you very much for that, for Alex, and again, everyone who has joined us for this webinar. I do hope you found it helpful. Some of you may still have these questions in mind about, exactly how we can do A, B, and C. But, if you have any particular questions or thoughts on what we've discussed, then please send me an email. That's studio@radio.co. And ultimately, we've just tried to provide a little bit of some tips, some do's and don'ts, some guidance about how you can make your station available and ultimately how you can attract an audience. So I hope you have enjoyed it. Lucy, have you enjoyed it?
I've enjoyed myself greatly, Phil.
Thank you very much.
It's been great.
And I must say the same as well. I've enjoyed you having here, Lucy. So thank you very much for joining me. And thank you very much for checking us out. And again, any questions, any issues, or you were just intrigued about launching your online radio station with us, you can go to Radio.co. You can reach us out, studio@Radio.co. Just have a chat, see what we can do to help.
Yeah, or feel free to reach out to us on social media as well.
Of course, it kind of goes back to what we've been talking about. We do promote a lot of stuff on social media, so come and reach out to us on social media.
I'll get back to you on that.
That's probably a bit more fitting. But yeah, whatever you do, thank you very much for joining us, and happy broadcasting.
Hey, I'm James, founder of Radio.co. Before you go anywhere, I've got an interesting question for you. Do you know the difference between a radio station that launches and becomes very successful, gets lots of listeners and does very well, and a radio station that perhaps kind of doesn't launch very well and disappears within a few months, doesn't really get much attention? Well, I've put together a checklist which will illustrate to you in a very simple way the 5 key differences between radio stations that launch and do well versus radio stations that launch and kind of disappear. You can download your free copy over at radio.co/checklist today. Find out exactly how you can make the most out of your radio station. That's radio.co/checklist. Go and grab your free copy. I'll see you there.